every time I read one of the letters of the Apostle Paul, I do have to make myself get over the feeling that I'm invading someone's privacy. After all, these letters were not written to or for us. Paul had no thought that we would collect his writings into something called the Bible. If we understand that, you understand that Paul had no idea or any consider that he was writing something that would be declared scripture. And so, in some sense, we are being nosy. We reading other folks' mail. That's what we're doing right here. And so I decided I want to depart from reading someone else's letter and recast this letter. If you will indulge me, let me recast the letter to reflect our time, our present. That this is a letter that makes sense to us and not a church, an early church, a very long time ago. So, a recasted letter in our own time. Reverend DeWayne L. Davis, called to be pastor and a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ by the will of God, to All God's Children Metropolitan Community Church in the Twin Cities of Minnesota, to those who have been set apart as a unique witness in this day and age to the presence of Jesus Christ, to those who have committed themselves to following the way of Jesus, together with everybody else in all the world who call on the name of Jesus and believe that Jesus indeed is the promised one. Grace and peace from God and from Jesus Christ. I give thanks, I do, every day because the grace of God has been given to you. Oh, you ask me, how do I know that the grace of God has been given to you? Because you sit before me right now, worshiping with us as a community, bearing witness to the presence of God in your life. Oh, you have had many challenges. Some of you were told that you should not be here, and yet here you sit. Here you sit, worshiping God as you are, living in hope that the day of God will come and you will share in the very blessings that God has bestowed. So I thank God every day for the grace that you have been given. Oh, you ask me again, how do you know, Pastor, that you are living in grace? I know because you have every gift, everything we need to be the church of Jesus Christ, you have in your very possession now. Every gift of speech, of knowledge, of bearing witness, you possess it right now. Everything you need to be the people God called, you have because God has gifted it to you. Oh, sometimes it doesn't look like it and you feel like you're a failure, but God has blessed you immeasurably. And you bear witness to how good God is. Everything you are, everything you have has been given to you that you might do it. And so Christ himself is strengthened in the world because you bear the sign of a people who belong to Jesus. You lack nothing. You lack nothing. And oh, how beautiful you are. I pray also that God will strengthen you till the end. Oh, we have no idea what awaits us in the future. In the next few months, the few years, we have no idea. Yet we know that God is faithful. And that whatever happens, we remain the people of God. Oh, covenant people, a people chosen, people God sees and says, you belong to me. And so whatever the future may hold, whatever may happen, we await the day when it will all be consummated And Jesus will look upon us and say, well done, faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. Now be blessed by God with the abundance that God has for you. And so you will be blameless until that day. Oh, I say it again, God is faithful. By God, you are called into something called a fellowship. That's right. Everybody all over the world, no matter how many times we try to divide ourselves or say we are part of some denomination or some other religious faith, no matter how many people say you are not the right one or the right kind, you have been called into a fellowship of Jesus. Oh, your individual ambition means nothing to us. Your individual striving means nothing to us. Oh, you don't have to have the best education or the most money. That means nothing to us. Because who and whose you are is what counts. A member of the fellowship of Jesus Christ. Every time I read the letter of the Apostle Paul, I feel like I'm eavesdropping. But the letter that I recast raises the question over and over again. I hope that when I recast the letter, you begin to see exactly what Paul was trying to do for the people at the church at Corinth. He was trying to remind them of who and whose they were. And you have to ask, why would Paul have to remind these people who and who they were? What is it? They are a church. They are a part. But here's the thing. Paul and the church in Corinth didn't celebrate something called Epiphany. But this letter that Paul writes is an embodiment of Epiphany. It is a call for us to see ourselves. To see ourselves as part of something. It is a call to see ourselves as the revealed sign of God. So when people look at us, do they see a manifestation of God in the world? When people look at us, do they see a fellowship of Jesus, a covenant people embodying Jesus' gospel in the world? I'm not talking about a bumper sticker religion. I'm not talking about all the little phrases you put on your car. I'm not talking about all the cute little memes you send on Facebook and Insta. I'm not talking about all the little phrases and the people you quote and this is a nice one, let me throw it up. I'm talking about a witness of the church that does more than pay lip service to a life in Jesus. You see, it's not good enough to claim Jesus, but with our lives and our actions, disavow the gospel that Jesus preached. See, I'm about to make somebody mad, but it's okay. Don't be mad at me. It would be a mistake to assume that because you sing like a bird, or that we preach like Paul, that the manifestation of God is already taken care of. No, Paul wanted to remind Corinth of who and whose they were. Plastering Jesus on a wall or a t-shirt is not enough to embody what Jesus stood for. Investing all the time you got, even all the money you may have, can only go so far if God is not revealed in your very present, the very way that we live, and the very way they live. And I've often wondered, what would the world look like? How the world would change if people who call themselves followers of Jesus actually lived and embodied the memes and the quotes they post on social media. if we actually live the things that we said, I mean, really show up fully representing Jesus and the gospel and the words we have memorized and that we have circulated and that we say even in this congregation. And if we are honest about it, we have to really take a look at why the church gets noticed. Now, I'm really about to get in trouble. Why do people notice the church? Do they notice the church because the church manifests God in such a real way that people are transformed by what they see? Do we manifest Jesus in such a way that people come running and say, could you tell me more about the one who loved so immeasurably and the one who came to bring us life and bring it more abundantly? Can I see more of that? Or are we noticed because of our participation in the culture wars? Does the church get noticed because we tend to be more hypocritical than anybody? Uh-oh. Do they notice us because of the televangelists who are on TV? Please don't notice us by them. Do they notice us because of the criminal behavior of priests who steal from their flock or who abuse the children in their care? Is that what they notice about the church? Because if that's what they notice, we need to be reminded of who and whose we are. Oh, we are noticed for many things, but are we noticed? Are we noticed because we manifest the God who is faithful and just, the God who gives us grace and peace, and we share it with the rest of us? Is that how we are noticed? Do people know what we are about when they see us or when we bear witness? Or are we offering up ourselves as a manifestation of something that people find unconvincing or indistinguishable from anything else in the world? Oh, I've often said it. If we want to mimic the social club down the hall, why would they come here? If we wanted to mimic everybody else out there, why would they just join a bowling league and have a good time? You don't have to get up on Sunday morning. What do people see when they look at us? Oh, you see, Paul understood that the church in Corinth needed an epiphany wake-up call. They needed to be reminded of who and whose they were. The church needed to see and reveal God so the rest of the world could see. And so when people come looking for the signs of God's presence, of God's movement, of God's newness, then they can see it in us. When people come looking for community and, yes, fellowship, will they find it here? Will they find it here? There's been this whole discussion about, can people call themselves Christians? Do we call ourselves Christian? I don't want to be a Christian if those people over there call themselves Christian and they don't act like Christians and you don't act like, what? It doesn't matter if however you live or whatever you call yourself, that people, when they see you, recognize God. Doesn't matter what they call you, is that when I see you, I recognize Jesus. When I see those people, I know that there is something different about them. They represent something I heard about when people talked about Jesus. As we go to the Martin Luther King holiday, I'm reminded that people always wondered if Dr. King was real. And some people didn't wonder, they just wanted to be mean to him because they hated him. But Dr. King embodied epiphany in a profound way. His detractors and his haters especially assumed when he said love and nonviolence, they thought it was a rhetorical strategy. They thought it was just, he's a manipulator. He's a manipulative communicator, so he's using these buzzwords of love and nonviolence, but he doesn't really mean it because he's a communist. That's what they said about him. But they found out otherwise in a public way. And Dr. King was starting to get a lot of notoriety. He was giving a speech in 1962 at the Southern Christian Leadership Conference's annual meeting. And while he was up there speaking, a white man bounded on stage and began punching Dr. King in the face, head, and back. As a matter of fact, the people who were there said that you could hear the punches landing. And they were screaming in horror, like, what is going on? And they were waiting for him to do something. And what they noticed that Dr. King did not raise his hand to protect himself. As a matter of fact, he dropped his hands beside him and began to receive the blows without doing anything, deliberately dropping his hands to his, facing his assailant, as someone said, with transcendent calm. Is nonviolence real? Is love real? And as the people began to wrestle the man away, and some were balling their fists to fight him back, Dr. King screamed out, "Don't touch him! Don't touch him! We must pray for our brother." When people look at us, when they see us, are we indeed the church of Christ? When they see us, can they say without doubt that we are the fellowship of Jesus? We are called to be a fellowship. I pray and I hope that when people see it, when they see us, that is what they see. May it be so. Amen.